Good morning, brethren, and welcome to our bi-weekly program entitled The Word in a Glimpse, which is broadcast twice every week. It is broadcast live on Facebook every Monday and every Wednesday at 8 a.m. West Africa time, which is 7 a.m. GMT. Today is January the 8th, 2024, and our topic this morning is entitled From Manna to the Produce of the Land. From manna to the produce of the land. Let's first extend to you all our best wishes for the year 2024. Let this year be the year of your enlargement in all the domains of your life, spiritual domain, physical domain, but not to become obese. No, not in that way. And especially in the way of health, that you have a very good health throughout this year 2024. And also socially and financially and materially. And let your families enjoy a very, very good year 2024 as well. Okay, so as we're saying, this topic, today's topic is entitled From Manna to the Produce of the Land. From manna to the produce of the land. Let's read in the book of Exodus, chapter 16, verse 35. Exodus chapter 16, verse 25. Let's read. And the children of Israel ate manna 40 years until they came to an inhabited land. They ate manna until they came to the border of the land of Canaan. Let's read again. And the children of Israel ate manna 40 years until they came to an inhabited land. They ate manna until they came to the border of the land of Canaan. We know very well the story of the children of Israel. When the children of Israel left Egypt, when they went out of Egypt to go to the land, to the promised land, to the land that God has promised them, where they were to settle, they had a few provisions with them, of course. They took a few provisions, the provisions that could feed them for a few days, only a few days. I don't know how many days exactly, maybe 3 days, 4 days, 5 days, but just a few days. And after those few days, they had no more food to eat. They had no more thing left to eat. So, which means that after a few days, they feared to die of hunger. They feared to die of starvation. So what did they do? They cried to Moses. They said to Moses, why did you bring us into this wilderness that we should die of hunger? We don't have any more thing to eat. In fact, through Moses, they were crying to God because God cried out to, because Moses cried out to Moses. So they were ultimately crying to God. They were expressing their needs to God. And God heard their cry and he gave them food. What food did he give them? He gave them manna. Manna is something that they didn't know, but they got used to it. It was a very nice food to eat, according to what the Bible says. So manna fed them for 40 years. We know why they spent 40 years in the desert. It was just because of their own behavior. They didn't trust the Lord enough. They rebelled against God. They didn't want to go and take possession of the country that God promised them to have. So God punished them. He said, all those who said, that they would die in the wilderness will actually die in the wilderness. They will not reach Canaan. So this is why they had to spend 40 years in the desert, in the wilderness, until the very last person who went out of Egypt died in the wilderness. That is when God made them go into Canaan. So all those who went out of Egypt died in the wilderness, except two persons, Caleb and Joshua, and we know why. So the children of Israel ate manna during all their stay in the wilderness, during all the wandering in the wilderness, during all the journey from Egypt to Canaan. They were eating manna. So those children of Israel who were born in the wilderness, those who were meant to enter Canaan, according to what God said, didn't know any other food besides manna. With only two exceptions, of course, as we said, Joshua and Caleb, who were the only ones still alive among those who came out of Egypt. So manna was then, as so to say, the blessing that God poured out on the children of Israel in the wilderness. It was a blessing. It was an effortless blessing because they were not doing any effort to collect that manna and eat it. Collecting manna required, as so to say, no effort at all. Every morning, they would go out of their tents, gather manna that was covering the surface of the ground, take it back into the tents and eat it. So it required no effort at all, as to say. So they were not even to keep it for the next day, since every morning there was a new supply of manna for them. Only on the sixth day of the week could they gather twice their needs in manna, since there was no supply in manna from heaven on the seventh day, on the Sabbath day. So they didn't need to do any effort to have that manna. It was coming to them easily. So you know what they did? They asked for food and God gave them manna for 40 years without any physical effort on their side. So they were not even required to ask for food every day. They only asked for that food once, and God answered them positively. So through Moses, this is what they actually did. Through Moses, they went boldly to the throne of grace to find a solution to their need for food. And God was more than gracious to them. He fed them with manna every single day for 40 days. For 40 years, without requiring from them to be asking for food again, on and on. So manna represents the blessing that we receive without any effort. The grace that we receive, the blessing that we receive just by the grace of God. Yet that blessing which we receive without any effort is also meant to be provisional. It is meant to be temporary. So manna is, as so to say, ask and it will be given to you blessing. You know, as we read in Matthew chapter 7, verse 7, it is said, ask and it will be given to you. So you just ask and you receive without any effort. You don't have to work for it. Don't have to do anything more for it. Blessing to you, Stella Joyce Bulu. Blessing to you. Now, this kind of blessing, this ask and it will be given to you blessing, is generally given to new converts. Not only, but mainly to new converts. They receive without any effort what they ask for. So this blessing is just a temporary blessing meant to back your faith. It is meant to enhance your faith and to make you earnestly desire a much better blessing. It is not a very long-lasting blessing. It may last for many years. But it's just temporary. It is there to enhance your faith, to make you understand that whatever God promises, He fulfills. And so you can be asking for it, for more complicated things. Now then, your manna blessing may seem glittering, it may seem sparkling, it may seem brightly shining, yet it still is and remains manna blessing, a temporary blessing, a ground zero blessing. So it is meant to come to an end sooner or later. No matter how long you might be enjoying your manna blessing, it will definitely come to an end. And it will come to an abrupt end, to a sudden end. You see, the children of Israel ate manna during 40 whole years. 40 whole years. Many of them only knew manna, no other food. In fact, among all those who entered Canaan, as we already said, only Joshua and Caleb knew some food other than manna. So for 40 good years, the children of Israel ate manna, only manna, nothing else. It was their food from heaven. It was their only and unique food. And they probably thought that they would continue eating it on and on all throughout their lives. They were convinced that even though they were going to settle in a land flowing with milk and honey, they would still continue being blessed with manna, a food that cost them nothing, a food that required them no effort at all. So they were convinced of it. And they were very happy with the fact that they would be eating at their full every day without any effort, without spending any notable effort. They never imagined that this blessing from the beloved God would ever cease one day. They couldn't imagine that. But let's now read Joshua chapter 5. Joshua chapter 5. Let's read verses 11 and 12. Joshua chapter 5, verses 11 and 12. And they ate of the produce of the land on the day after the Passover, unleavened bread and parched grain on the very same day. Then the manna ceased on the day after they had eaten the produce of the land. And the children of Israel no longer had manna, but they ate the food of the land of Canaan that year. Let's read again. And they ate of the produce of the land on the day after the Passover, unleavened bread and parched grain on the very same day. Then the manna ceased on the day after they had eaten the produce of the land, and the children of Israel no longer had manna, but they ate the food of the land of Canaan that year. Sorry. You see, when the children of Israel finally reached Canaan, when they crossed the border of Canaan, they first duly circumcised all the male individuals among them to ascertain their covenant with God. And meanwhile, they continued eating manna that God kept on giving them. Thus, they duly thought that now that they had sealed their covenant with God, God would continue feeding them with manna, this effortless food, this effortless blessing. And then they discovered something else. They discovered the produce of the land. Certainly, they discovered wheat. Wheat which helped them bake bread. Remember, all those people who entered Canaan only knew one food, manna. They didn't know bread. They didn't know any other food besides manna. Only Joshua and Caleb knew something else apart from manna. So it probably was Joshua and Caleb who taught them how to bake bread and how to parch grain. But that is a different story. What we have to know is that they first baked unleavened bread to eat on the Passover day or during the Passover celebration, which, as we know, took 7 days. So they first baked unleavened bread, and they used that unleavened bread to celebrate the first Passover in the land of Canaan. Thus, on that Passover day, they ate unleavened bread and parched grain made from the produce of the land of Canaan. And on the next day, while they were expecting to go out of their tents and gather manna, there was nothing. There was no more manna. Finished, nailed, no manna. So manna has ceased abruptly. Manna has ceased without any prior notice. This is generally how manna blessing ends, without any prior notice. So you are the one to get prepared to the end of manna blessing in your life. No matter how long it may last, no matter how glittering it may be, no matter how brightly shining it may be, know that manna blessing in your life will always come to an end, an abrupt end, sooner or later, without any prior notice. And then you have to get prepared to be eating from the produce of the land, to be receiving a different blessing. But this, we'll talk about it on this coming Wednesday, the 10th of January. Meanwhile, have a very wonderful day, have a very wonderful week, have a very wonderful month of January. God bless you abundantly beyond all your expectations. And let's meet again on Wednesday to continue with this same topic, from manna to the produce of the land. Once more, God bless you abundantly beyond all your expectations.